If you want to see Emily Fox, today's video is going to be all about books that I'm hoping to read in 2022. I have about 20 books to mention in this video. It's not quite 22 books that I want to read in 2022 like I've been doing in the past, but I will link down below all the other reading challenges that I'm hoping to do this year, and you'll understand that I already have a lot of books to read. I have a classic one, I have one about finishing series, and I have one about nonfiction. A lot of books to be read, and I didn't want to repeat myself. So let's get to it. A few of these I'm actually hoping that we will read together with the Patreon book club. If not, I will read them anyway. And I will give you the chance to vote every month as always. So, the first one obviously has to be the continuation of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I have read book 1 and 2. 2 I read last year and absolutely loved it. I'm pretty sure this is my favorite book by him ever. And now it's time for book 3. I've been trying to savor them and stretch them a little bit. I have book 4 to read afterwards, but book 5 is coming out next year, so trying to spread them a little bit. I adore this series. I think it's his best work so far. Adult fantasy, high fantasy, world building, magic, everything is amazing. His characters are the best that he has ever written, and I need to know. After the ending of book 2, I need to know what happens next. So hopefully pretty shortly I will be reading this one. It's pretty chunky, but I'm very excited. Speaking of Brandon Sanderson, I have been meaning to read this. This is the Arcanum Unbound, the Cosmere collection, basically a bunch of novellas part of this universe. In one of them, I had to read book 2 in the Stormlight Archive series first, so now I think I have read everything that needed to be read before I can actually enjoy this. So I will be reading this one before this one so I can get to that little novella. So yes, excited to finally get more from this whole universe. I mean, I will read pretty much anything he writes, so no surprise here. Another series that I have been meaning to continue is the Wheel of Time series. I read book 1 last year, ended up enjoying it a lot more than I thought, and I started book 2, which is The Great Hunt, but I've been in a slump, and I did post toilet paper as a post-it. I'm at chapter 5, so I'm not super far. I was enjoying it, but for some reason I just wasn't in the mood to read it, so I decided to watch a TV show, or attempt to, I should say, to try and motivate myself. Has anyone watched the show? Because I couldn't finish the first episode because I'm very mad. You'll see that in my next vlog, but I just could not get into it. I was really mad. So I'm still looking forward to continuing the series. I really want to get to book 2 this year and finish it. A few more fantasy books I'm hoping to read this year. We have She Who Became the Sun, which was one of the nominees in the Goodreads reading challenge. Although I'm not doing it technically this year, there are still a few books that I want to read from that list because they were new releases. Fantasy, I had read none in that category. None, which is really weird for me. So that one is definitely on my list. Maybe we'll be reading it together. Or another popular one was The Shadow of the Gods, which again, I don't know anything except that a lot of people have been meaning to read it. And the ones I have say it's amazing, but I had never heard anything of it. The whole Goodreads awards show last year was so weird to me. But yes, definitely I'm hoping to read both of these. I also have a few books that are coming out in 2022 that I really want to read. The first one is To Paradise, which is the same author as A Little Life, and that book is pretty controversial. I feel like people have been calling it trauma corn, myself included, and I don't think I have cried this hard reading a book ever. It's either a hit or a miss. For me, somehow it worked. William is one of my all-time favorite characters, so I really want to read more by her, and I believe it's kind of historical fiction-ish, but mostly following trauma of her characters, so I will happily read this. I currently have the audiobook, but I think I'm going to get my hands on the physical copy because the audiobook is 28.5 hours, which that's a lot, so I might actually need to read the physical copy to really remember who is who, because characters and me, the names, I just never remember them. So yes, looking forward to reading that one. Another one is Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I have read most of his books at this point. I love them. I'm always recommending them, especially for people that are struggling to get back to reading. I need to do a video about that, but I'm looking forward to another, hopefully, thriller sci-fi. Seems to be his thing, and it's definitely one of my favorite genres to read, or mix of genres. So we'll be reading that as soon as it comes out. About once a year, I am in the mood to read a romance, and Emily Henry, her books have been everywhere, and I had been wanting to read one, but she's coming out with a new one in 2022, which is called Book Lovers. So I think this might be the one that I try first. It's coming out in May this year, and I might read it, vlog it like I've been doing for some reason. Even though romances are not really my thing, I get very invested, and I usually end up hating one of the main characters because they're always so toxic. Anyway, so I will probably rant as I read it, looking forward to it. or maybe I'll love it, which would be even better. One author I have been meaning to read more from is Adrian Jakovsky. He came out, I believe, last year with Shards of Earth, which I love his stuff. I have read quite a few actually of his books, but he is like a machine. He comes out with so many books. And I believe this is technically going to be a duology, and book 2 is coming out in 2022, so we'll be continuing the series if I enjoy it. But this one is a sci-fi. Its plots are usually really complicated, but from what I understand, we were attacked by aliens, and then the remnant of humanity creates this like enhanced humans version of us, who are able to communicate mind to mind to the aliens, and the aliens just go away and things happen. We'll see. I'm very much looking forward to it. That was really bad descriptions, but so far the reviews are really positive. One that I had been meaning to read last year and I just never had the time to get around to reading it is Piracy? I had never picked up the other book by the author, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, because let's be real, the size of that book is humongous, but so many people mentioned that this is a really great fantasy book. It's not that big. I believe it's like 250 pages, so I want to try something by the author, so I have been wanting to read that one. It's also a fairly new release, came out in 2020. Yes, 2020. That's it. I like to make you vote which challenges you want me to do, but two that I'm hoping to do like reading vlogs for. The first one is to give authors/series a second chance, because I read the first book and I'm kind of about it, and I want to give it a second chance. The first one is the Red Rising series, which I had read Red Rising, the first book, my first year on Booktube, and I was kind of on the fence with it. I've been describing it as like a Hunger Game in space, kind of mixed with like Game of Thrones a little bit. And I had read the first book, which was fine. I feel like my interest went up and down, but it didn't start on a good note for me, because I believe in the first chapter, the love interest of the main male character dies tragically in order for him to start his journey. I really hate that trope so much. So I kind of just never loved it because of that, or at least that's part of the reason. But I've had book 2 and 3 actually on my shelf for years, so I want to give it a second shot because I've heard that the series is really amazing. So might as well, it's on my shelf, so why not? And in the same vlog, I will try to give a second chance also to the Black Person series by Brent Week, which I'm laughing because I had read book 1 a couple years ago, and I thought I was going to give it a 5-star because it's an adult fantasy. There's a magical school setting, which is one of my favorite things ever. The magic system is based on color. It sounded really great, but I was really disappointed while reading it because, well, first off, it takes about like 100 pages to get into it, and then it was just so sexist, and I just really wasn't expecting it. And I find myself less and less willing to excuse stuff like that, but back in the day, I was pretty forgiving, and it was still way too much. So many mentions of like boobs and nipples. It was just so ridiculous. But I am curious and I want to give it a second chance. Hopefully it will be better and I will end up enjoying it, but I will be prepared with post-its this time. I'll try to focus on the magic system, but every time boobs are mentioned, there will be a post-it. A second challenge that I'm hoping to do is to read 2 books with the same title, and then maybe we can make it like a competition. The best one ends up being the one that deserves the name or something. We'll see. We'll make it fun. And it's going to be The Deep. So the first one is by Nick Cutter. I have read one book by him, and he writes like horror books, and they tend to be like have quotes from like Stephen King raving about them. So I want to give it a second shot because I did enjoy overall the first book that I've read by him. Cannot remember the title. I'll put it on the screen. In this case, I believe it's like a kind of plague pandemic, which why not? Might as well read all of them at this point. So that's the first one. And the second one is by River Solomon, also The Deep. And I believe this one is about mermaids. And it's like the mermaids came from slave African women who were thrown off boats, and then things will happen. I don't want to know too much because obviously I want to go into them not knowing anything so I can be fair in my review and decide which one is the best one. So although the last thing I need is to start more series, I will still do that because I have so many I want to read. The first one is the Culture series, which I have heard that they're more companion novels and you can start anywhere, and book 1 is pretty bad, but I'm stubborn and I think I'm going to start with book 1. And if I hate it, I'll just put it down and pick up book 2 because I also have book 2 on my shelf. So why not? So this is the first one. Consider Flebes? Oh, we'll blame that on the French. I have no idea how I'm supposed to pronounce this name, I'm assuming. By Ian Banks. This is like a well-known adult sci-fi series, and I've just been really intimidated because it's a pretty long series, and I have so many like hard sci-fis on my shelf that have been on there for way too long, so might as well pick one up, and this one is not the biggest one, so why not? This is a really well-known and popular one, so hopefully that will work out for me too. I've also been meaning to read more from Octavia E. Butler. This is going to be the first book in this trilogy, which is called Dawn. Honestly, ignore the cover. My editions are like combined editions, and they have like really kind of religious looking books, but her books are really, really great. We've read Kindred last year, which ended up being one of my best read of 2021. So I'm really excited. This is also a sci-fi book, but the author tends to use sci-fi to discuss certain topics. In this one, humanity was destroying each other and we're almost extinct, which is something that will never happen really with the way things are going. And aliens arrive and just end up kind of saving us, and that's all I know. So I'm looking forward to reading this book. It's about like 200 something pages. My edition is like 250, so I will be reading the first book, and if I love it, I'll read the whole thing and maybe finish an actual series, which that would be shocking. I also have a few more horror mystery thrillers that I don't know a lot of, but I really want to read them because I have heard great things. Still read some of the like most recent ones just to tell you which ones I think are worth it. I've been not super lucky with some of them, but these have gotten really positive reviews. So the first one is My Heart is a Chainsaw, who that wasn't the winner for the Goodreads Choice Award last year, but a lot of people say it should have won. So I'm curious. I don't read a ton of horror because it tends to be kind of hit and miss for me, but hopefully this one ends up working for me also. Also, we have Razorblade Tears, which I have heard this is absolutely amazing. So I already have it on my waiting list at the library, so will happen. And I also have Rock, Paper, Scissors, which I wanted to give a second shot to this author because I didn't hate the other book that I read by her, which was Sometimes I Lie. My issue with that one was the fact that first off, there's a trope of like a woman who was in a coma, unreliable character, and it was really focused on like her husband kind of thing. But my main issue with it was the fact that there were too many twists, which sounds really like, who complains about that? But I feel like sometimes it feels too forced, like the author is trying to get to a point where it's like, aha, you didn't see that one coming. And it's like, yeah, of course, you're so far away from the main premise at that point. So I kind of lost a little bit interest towards the end because of that, but I didn't hate it. I still overall enjoyed it. I completely understand the hype of that one, but I wanted to try something else by her, and I have heard that her newest book is really good, so hopeful. And then last but not least, I wanted you to vote and let me know which book I should read by John Marsh, because I have heard really great things about him. I actually have 2 of his books on my Kindle, but I haven't read anything by him, so let me know. The 2 that I have are What Lies Between Us and also The Passengers, but I have heard the one, I think it's his most popular book, is also really good. So let me know in the comments which one out of the 3 should I pick up. Like I mentioned in the intro, I will be linking the other videos in the description box of other books that are on my TBR for 2022. It's going to be a very busy year if I end up reading all of these, but that's okay. We like that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye.